Hi, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Psychology from My Kitchen. I'm Mrs. Sarah Ryan, and today in AP Psychology, we are continuing to talk about the various types of mental illnesses that people can experience. In our last episode, we were talking about anxiety disorders. Today, we are looking at obsessive compulsive disorder and its related disorders. Now, previously, obsessive compulsive disorder was a part of the classification of anxiety disorders. And you'll be able to see some overlap between obsessive compulsive disorders and the anxiety disorders we talked about last time. However, in the most recent edition of the DSM, OCD and its related disorders were removed and put into its very own chapter because of some of the differences that we see with obsessive compulsive disorder. It's really important to note that OCD is a type of disorder that many people think they know about, and they also use the terminology in very derogatory ways towards other people. They might say phrases like, "Ugh, that's so OCD of you," right? And that doesn't do anybody favors. That you're demeaning the fact that some people do in fact have obsessive compulsive disorder, and you're also indicating that you don't truly know what obsessive compulsive disorder is really about. And so today, I hope that by learning about what OCD is and its related disorders, that we might be more informed and that we might treat one another better in understanding how these types of disorders actually work. So in obsessive compulsive disorder and its related disorders, see that we're going to talk about OCD, but we're also going to talk about hoarding disorder, trichotillomania, and body dysmorphic disorder. Obsessive compulsive disorder is a type of disorder that is marked by two distinct things. There are obsessions, and then there are compulsions. Obsessions are thoughts. Compulsions are behaviors. So we have thoughts and we have behaviors. The obsessive thought is going to be a repetitive type of thought that is often going to create distress for the individual, and that these obsessive types of thoughts can have a wide range of material. One of the more common types of obsessive thought that is repetitive and is causing distress are things that deal with health, for example, maybe health as well as safety. And so you might see someone who is overly concerned about cleanliness, about their health, that contamination is often a word that we use, that this is a person who has overly obsessive thoughts about the potential of contaminating their body or potentially contaminating the body of someone that they love. And so this is creating a lot of anxiety. Okay, the obsessive thought is creating anxiety. It's making them feel distressed. And so this person has actually created a behavior as a way to minimize the obsessive repetitive thought. And so that is what the compulsive behavior is going to be. The person feels compelled to do a distinct behavior that's going to help reduce the obsessive thought that the person is experiencing, thus attempting to reduce the distress that they are experiencing. However, the compulsive behavior is often going to create a lot of dysfunction. And then, of course, we have this whole kind of cycle that's going to happen with our persons with obsessive compulsive disorder. So, if you have someone who, for example, is going to have obsessions about contamination, so being fearful of germs, being fearful of getting sick, they might feel compelled to do a series of behaviors in typically ritualistic types of ways in order to prevent themselves from being contaminated. And so one of the more classic types of compulsive behaviors is hand washing. So while everybody should wash their hands, please, hand washing is a normal, healthy kind of behavior to do in order to keep us clean, okay? But in a person with obsessive compulsive disorder, their hand washing, again, might have a ritualistic quality about it, as well as the fact that they might find themselves excessively washing their hands to the point in which they're actually causing damage to their skin. Their skin becomes dry and cracked, it can become bloody, that even the pigmentation of the skin can actually become discolored because the person is washing their hands so excessively. The person might be overly concerned about safety, and so there might be something where they need to check their locks or check their light switches, check their appliances a specific number of times before they allow themselves to leave the house. And if they don't do these things, it feels wrong. And it also creates, again, that obsessive thought that something is wrong. And again, the distress that that person is going to experience. And so in obsessive compulsive disorder, we have both the obsessive repetitive thoughts, and then the person trying to reduce those obsessive thoughts by creating the word that we would say is maladaptive, which is a harmful, hurtful types of behavior. And so this person is going to do a maladaptive behavior in order to attempt to reduce the obsessive thought that's causing anxiety for them. Okay, next is hoarding disorder. Now, for a long time, we knew about hoarding and we referred to it as like a form of obsessive compulsive disorder. Today, we recognize it as its own separate entity in the DSM. Now, in hoarding disorder, a person does have an obsession, if you will, but their type of compulsive behavior is to keep something. And so the thought is often one of like over sentimentality. This person feels as though their possessions have actual value and that they cannot get rid of that value, that they might need it someday. And so there is a feeling that, I cannot get rid of it. Hoarding can extend to animals as well. So the idea that I have to care for these animals, I love all of these animals. And so this person is going to feel compelled to keep a significant quantity of things that unfortunately can create housing conditions that become unlivable. That while we might hang on to certain papers and things like that, usually it's not such a problem if I can still keep myself and my home clean, that my home is free of animals and insects, and that I'm living in a healthy environment. In persons with hoarding disorder, unfortunately, their compulsive behavior to not throw away items, especially things like food, for example, or with animals, that it can create hazardous living conditions, and that's the significant dysfunction that is in place. Similarly, it's not so easy to just say like, oh, well, somebody's going to drop off a dumpster and just clear out everything in their home and things would be going back to normal. It doesn't work like that. We have to recognize that a person who's experiencing hoarding disorder is experiencing mental illness, and that there are treatments available for that person if they're willing to accept them. But that, again, it can create significant amounts of distress, not just for the person who's experiencing it, but potentially for their family members. Trichotillomania is going to be a type of compulsive behavior. And this type of compulsive behavior is one that is, again, often associated with anxiety, but not always. And this is an experience in which a person is going to pull their hair. The most common areas of hair that the person is going to pull are their eyebrows and their eyelashes. And so they might find themselves pulling the hair of their eyebrows and their eyelashes out. For women as well, trichotillomania might show itself in ways that the person plays excessively with their hair and damages their hair, typically by pulling the hair or splitting hair follicles that creates this kind of uh, damage to the body physically. And the person feels compelled to do these things. They often do them without even consciously realizing the fact that they might be doing this behavior. In fact, I have students in class in previous years who I've actually seen this sort of behavior happening, almost as though a habitual behavior, which is part of what compulsions might be, and that this person is creating damage to their body and often not realizing it. But this is that hair pulling that can happen. You can also sometimes see with persons that they might pick at their skin as well, but it's much more common with the hair. Our last disorder to mention in this video today is body dysmorphic disorder. Body dysmorphic disorder is part of the obsessive compulsive family because the obsessions are often preoccupations with perceived flaws in the body. This can, of course, include things like weight, but it might also be with skin. It could be with shapes of noses and chins, all kinds of different places, moles, for example, like moles on your face, and the person might excessively be checking on these perceived flaws and believe that others are scrutinizing the physical flaws that they think that they have. Body dysmorphic disorder then also can create compulsive types of behaviors in which the person might do things to their body in order to extinguish this perceived flaw. So they might go for very excessive types of medical treatments, for example, as a way to change their perceived flaw. It could be with weight loss surgeries and plastic surgeries that become overly excessive. And the reason why this person is doing it is, again, because they think something is wrong. There is an obsessive quality about what they have perceived in their body as being this type of flaw. And so it's much more than just somebody who, they want to fix their nose or fix their chin, that this person has an obsession about that. And that is, again, creating dysfunctional, distressful, and deviant behavior patterns. In our next video, we're going to start exploring trauma as well as post-traumatic stress disorder. Until then, thank you for joining me. Have a great day.